Good afternoon. This is the Streets and Sidewalks Committee for the City of Troy. Today is the 3rd of October, actually, and it is about 10 minutes after 6 p.m. in the afternoon. To my right is Councilwoman Lynn Snee, and to my left is Councilman Brock Heath, and I am Bob Phillips, the chairman of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee. Today we're here to hear a staff recommendation on the award of a study for a contract for our West Main Street corridor from I-75 to Cherry Street. And Mr. Titterington or Mrs. Rhodes, who will be presenting?
I can start off, and then Mrs. Rhodes is available for the to answer the real questions. We are asking that the council authorize a contract with Strand Associates. They went through a professional services review. This would be to do a comprehensive study of that corridor on West Main Street from Cherry out to the I-75 ramps. And this is in anticipation of an ODOT project that is planned for 2020 currently to do a repaving project. You might recall our discussion during the 2016 budget. We did include $200,000 in the budget for this study. The reason being that knowing that this is our busiest street, that as we anticipate to grow, it's important to understand what our utility structure is, what our constraints are, what additional right-of-way we may need to pursue now and in the future. Again, in anticipation of this project. I say that the 2020 is the scheduled date. Based on this study, that date can be flexible. So if we decide that we want to do a more comprehensive construction and reconstruction project, then we'll have an opportunity to discuss that with ODOT as soon as we get the results and can digest and analyze the results of that study. We are not recommending requesting emergency legislation.
How is this going to tie into our comprehensive plan schedule?
It will directly tie into our comprehensive plan. That will be the basis of, well, it'll be part of the analysis that Strand does as they look at all of the aspects of our infrastructure as well as our right-of-way limits. They will also have in mind what the comprehensive plan projects in terms of long-term growth.
And the input from the city, will we be asking for input prior or at the front end of Strand's or whatever company that we do go with at the beginning of their process?
I don't think so. I don't believe that this is going to be kind of a public input in advance of their work. Their work will be primarily engineering work, analyzing what we have, using the comprehensive plan, the transportation plan, thoroughfare plan, complete streets once that is approved by City Council, and those aspects. I don't know that we've got any upfront public
there's one public meeting plan that'll actually be after we have alternatives. And looking at the RFPs and talking to the engineers, they don't feel that there's going to be a huge change. It's just really to improve safety at intersections, as well as we all know the sidewalk and how narrow all the lanes are. So they feel like the 5-lane cross section, for the most part, all the way down there is sufficient, but we may need additional asphalt there because of the tight lane widths, and then the sidewalks, making sure the sidewalks are sufficient. And then also they'll be looking at the intersections and all the turning movements and seeing how things line up, and do we need, a drop lane? Do we need a, dedicated left lane, kind of things like that. So there may be probably more work at intersections. So we had discussed originally including 2 public involvement meetings, and we've kind of narrowed that down to 1 just because we don't feel that it's going to encroach on a lot of those residents. And so really the encroachment, the difficulty will be getting through the construction season, getting through the construction of whatever project comes to fruition.
So, and this is from Cherry Street,
Yep.
one block off of the square west.
Yes.
And that does not mean that after we get their review and start analyzing it, and we accept what they have to say and we decide to create a larger construction project, there will be additional dialogue with any residents that would be impacted.
Okay.
So this is really just the first phase of a multi-phase project. And even we anticipate, truthfully, one of the things that we're being set up with is there's safety funding that's available. So a lot of the things that we anticipate that's going to come as an output from this corridor study is how to improve safety and linking it to safety so that we could be eligible for those funds. And then doing this multi-phase. So working with ODOT to kind of maybe delay some of their paving. We don't really want to delay it a lot. There is deterioration out there in West Main, but design and these things just take time. So we definitely want to do our due diligence and plan up front. So that's what this study's doing, and then proceed forward. So in looking at just the real top of the line, what they've done in research and what they proposed back in the RFP is talking about, the intersections are the high accident areas, so Adams Street and Main Street, Elm Street and Main Street, Ridge and Main. So Dorset and Main are all big areas where high traffic and high accidents. So looking for any kind of safety improvements that we can do with those intersections, obviously, to reduce the accidents.
And timing for all the lights from point A to.
We're all the time working on that. We are. Believe you me, I drive out that way at 5 o'clock.
Questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just the ODOT, is the paving that's already planned for that, is it in phases? Or
It is
They're just
not.
going to come through and pave the entire thing?
They were going to come through and pave the entire thing. So we've kind of given them a heads up that we're going to do this corridor study and that we would like to phase the paving so that it's at the end of our improvements, and they have been open to that.
Have they?
Yeah, so actually what we're going to do and what's included in some of this are some meetings with ODOT. So once we maybe get the information together, maybe meeting or at least having a conversation with ODOT to say, we're kind of foreseeing it to be maybe a certain number of phases, so that, again, we're not biting off a bigger chunk, and we're making it all the safety funding, kind of just trying to maximize our funding so that minimizes city dollar input.
Yeah. Well, it seems like a large piece of street to be torn up all at once.
Yeah, so it's
pretty major.
1.63 miles
Wow.
is what so it's a large corridor.
But you do want to get away from the paving and then coming back and putting a trench in the middle and repaving.
Right.
Seams.
Right. And this would take multiple phases to try to do this, all the safety all the way down through there. It would take several years probably.
That's what we're anticipating. So the sooner
Yeah.
we get this started, it's taken a long time to get to here. So just from kind of getting all the information, kind of figuring out what exactly we want to do, what kind of scope we wanted this to be. So this is the beginning of, I think, an exciting time because it'll be challenge. There will be challenging times, but just to start the study.
Yeah.
It always moves at the speed of government.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Mrs. Sneak.
I think all my questions have been answered. I appreciate the information.
Any other council folks?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this comparable to the North Market Street project?
No, this corridor study is not. So this is just the study phase. What we did that was a design phase. So projects kind of go, if there is a study necessary, they go study phase, and they go design, then they go construction. So North Market right now is in design and actually getting close to the end of design. So it'll be constructed next year. So it's kind of a step before that. So we did kind of...
Well, no. I mean comparable to what we did previously on the first stretch of North Market.
Ultimately, this would be the same process with one additional steps, as Mrs. Rhodes is saying. With the North Market Street project, it was basically a two phases. The second phase happening next year, and that was a design then build. This one is a study, then design, then build, because the corridor is much larger, much wider, and much more heavily traveled.
But if you're talking about the actual cross-section with the number of lanes, it'll be wider than North Market. But we'll probably do a lot of the same like there were, what we typically do is if we do widen, we get into people's yards, we do that restoration. We put the new sidewalk in, put the new drive approaches in. So if that's what you're talking
So
about.
it's new sidewalks, new curbs,
Yes, most certainly.
and then down to sounds like ODOT was going to be repaving it anyhow, and we're just saying, let us
Yeah.
do the study first.
Yeah, because we know that we need curbs there where there is no curb existing. We know that we may need turn lanes where there may not be turn lanes existing. So we're not certain at this point if we would do complete street reconstruction, but that'll be kind of washed out in the study as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Is ODOT helping pay for any of this?
Not during the study, no.
Okay. We're going out to 75, or are we going to go to the traffic light just past 75?
We are going out to 75. There is a project, actually ODOT is beginning to do a study of the bridge and the redecking of the bridge. So I talked to them at a site meeting in February of this year to actually talk about what they plan to do with that. There was originally a project that they had slated for, I believe, right around 2020. They've now pushed it out to 2022 to talk about the redecking of the overpass, West Main overpass. I've asked them to, and they've complied to do some traffic, doing 20-year projections to make sure, because that seems like a very busy overpass, and I feel that it would be surprising if that wasn't maxed out within 20 years. And so ODOT was thinking they were going to go back and replace in kind. And I said, I think that we may need to, look at that a little bit more in detail. So they're in the process of doing that and starting that design of that phase right now. So we are taking it just to the northbound exit and entrance ramps, and then ODOT's going over the interstate, and then they would be kind of taking it, depending on what lanes are required, they'd be taking it to that first light, which would be the Walmart Troy Town Park Drive.
Also, looking at it would be storm and water.
Yes.
The whole
Yeah.
thing. Be
So as
looked
part of this study, they won't go into detailed design, but what we will do is we will internally look at the condition of our sanitary and our known condition of our water. Sanitary, you can actually camera and go in and look. Water, you can't, but we can operate valves, we can do what we can do. And then storm, what they'll do is they'll do kind of a real general, like, is our storm sized appropriately, so that we can get more accurate cost estimates, so that we can more intelligently then break it into different phases.
So this is kind of like the McKeag Road project. Are we replacing all the curbs and everything?
Well, McKeag, North Market, basically any phased project that we want to do with our streets, yes.
Okay.
And that's why we didn't want, when we knew that ODOT was going to come in and were willing to do an overlay, a repaving project, we said, well, we really ought to look at something more comprehensive. I mean, one of the best examples of one of the best reasons to do that is so much of our sidewalk is right at the curb with no tree lawn in it. Is there an opportunity to move some, if not all, of that sidewalk so that it is more safely away from the traffic lanes? That'll be one of the questions that they'll hopefully answer for us in this study.
What about bike lanes?
We're discussing bike lanes versus share roads. We're looking at that as part of the complete streets, and that goes back to the comprehensive plan question. When the complete streets draft is finalized and council approves it, that will become part of the analysis.
Okay.
And to kind of add on to talking about grant funding, right now we don't anticipate any ODOT funding other than for the resurfacing. ODOT pays for 80% and we pay for the 20% of the resurfacing. Then when you talk about other funding, we are, and we have been told by the consultants that there is a potential if we go on to the next phase and we go to do a safety application. The application is pretty involved, but then we could ask ODOT to pay for the safety application as well as then put forth some of the construction project. So we're hoping that this sets us up perfectly, that we can get a lot of funding out of it.
It's probably a good idea to do this if whoever buys the ITW property, if there's additional traffic that comes in with that we anticipate that with the study going down through there.
Yeah.
So that being said, is there an update on the ITW property?
That's,
I'm in engineering. I'm not an ED.
that's a little outside the
Mr.
scope.
Titterington?
That's a little outside the scope of this,
Yes, it
this
is.
committee.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this particular item? Anyone in the audience? Okay, any other facts, figures, or anything you need to? Okay, so there is no emergency on this legislation, so what are you moving forward?
Yeah, before,
Okay, it's unanimous consensus of the committee to move forward as proposed by staff with this contract award. Any other items to come before the Streets and Sidewalks Committee? All right, then we are